welcome back to the next episode of the Sensible Mama podcast. I am Polina Westcott, your host. I'm really excited to talk today to Talia. She home birthed 7 years ago, but it's an experience you never forget and still love to talk about this many years later, right?
That's right.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name's Talia. I'm a business attorney. I have a blended family of 4 kids, a granddaughter, and like you said, I had my own daughter who's 7 now, so 7 years ago on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And then I just thought about a couple of things that might be helpful that you've gone over, but for whatever reason, I thought that it might be helpful to share from my perspective. Okay, so first is like whether or not to have a home birth. So I think it depends on the type of person you are. So some people are like, I'm not comfortable unless I have someone else who's in charge, you know what I mean? Or I don't feel like I know enough about this, so I need someone else to run the show. I am very much like, I need to be running the show, right? I'm an attorney, like I'm a little bit of a boss, like I need to know what's going on. I need to be consulted on all of my options and I need to choose them and then people need to agree to that, right? So that's how I am in business, but it's also how I am in life. So I think, when I thought about a hospital, I thought about it's kind of got this clinical energy, it's this sterile smell, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. Even when I visit people, I am reluctant to visit people I love in the hospital because I don't love it. Right.
You're the same exact way. Absolutely. I step into a hospital. I went to go visit a family member last year who was not doing so well. We went to go visit him and I'm like, okay, like literally walked through the front doors. I'm like, I immediately am like, you know, like the tenseness enters in, which is the last thing that you want in labor is tenseness, where I'm like,
Exactly. So for me, it was like a home birth was just a natural option. I get to be in control. I get to have it in my own environment, however I want to have it. I get to be consulted on things. I get to pick my options, whether or not they're good for me or not, because, you know, well, let me just say, like, for example, you can have a home birth and you can have it be, you know, more drawn out if you choose to have it more drawn out. You can have it you can have a water birth. You have a lot of different options, and one may go faster than the other, but you get to decide which one you want, right? So that was number one. So if you're the type of person like me who likes to make those decisions, then that's probably a good option for you. I think number two, the second point I wanted to go over was knowing what's going on. So I'm sure you've covered this at length as well, but books and classes were so helpful because when you know what's going on with your body, you're not afraid of it and you're more in charge of it. So, for example, like I read a couple books and I didn't agree with everything I read in the books. You know, some of the books are written by, for lack of a better word, hippies, and I am not a hippie. So they're like, oh, it was so amazing and pleasurable. And I'm like, I don't know if I would describe pain as pleasurable. Even if you're going to have the most amazing thing at the end, I'm not going to go that far, right? But between the classes and the books, I got to understand the different stages, and I got to understand what was happening with my body, and I got to see, like, you know, how the pelvis works. You know, there's some very integral parts of the process. You may think that the baby, I mean, I'll just say it. I thought the baby's coming down, right? Like the baby's coming straight down. The baby does not come down. The baby goes like that, right? So like to understand that was crucial to the pushing, to making it simpler. So that was another really, really helpful thing. Like I knew exactly what was going on, and I think that helps you because you can't really plan the entire event. It's an unplannable event, but you can be as prepared as possible to plan for the unplannable. And if you know what's happening with your body, I remember being like outside, we're on the Upper East Side, right outside of my apartment, and I'm walking, and all of a sudden I'm having real contractions. Not like those contractions where like when it first happened, it's your first baby, you're like, ooh, oh my gosh, like a contraction.
Felt something.
Oh, like, is that what it's going to be like? I can handle this. No, like a contraction where your whole body's going through it. And then I remembered, like each time something would happen, I would go back to the book or go back to the class or what I had heard. So I had a midwife and a doula. We can go over that later. But I'm with my doula at this point, walking around, and these contractions are like rushing through my body. And she was like, and I was like, this is intense. And she was like, okay, we can slow it down. And then I remember thinking, like, I have to walk through this. If I slow this down, this is still waiting for me at the other end. Like, what a motivating factor to push through now, you know? Did you have that?
So it's interesting that you say that, because with my the major well, there's a lot of differences, but if I were to pick one isolated difference between my first labor and my second labor, was with my first labor. And when I say like I was like withdrawing, I mean mentally, like completely in my head. I was doing nothing noticeably physically, but like in my mind I was like, oh, another contraction, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, let's get through this. I'm not liking this part sucks. And it did. Like,
sure,
it wasn't particularly, like you said, like I call them contractions. It hurt. I call it pain. I know some people like to call it, you know, surges or waves or whatever.
Oh yeah.
To me, it hurt. I don't know. I call it like it is, and if you want to use a different term, that's also totally fine. But it was a contraction, and it was painful, and I was like recoiling mentally from it. And it took a really long time. Like, that labor was 23 hours, and it was 2 hours of, I thought I was pushing, I didn't know what I was doing. And finally I was like, okay, I guess I have to and it was like a gradual step into the acceptance of like, I need to go through this if I want the baby to come out. I need to engage with this activity. Versus my second kid, where I had already had that realization with my first. And from the very first contraction at 5 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I was like, yeah, let's do this, you know? And every single one felt productive because I was mentally engaged and I could feel him coming down. And I was like, I didn't know that I could be so aware of what was going on in my body. And maybe it was all in my head. I don't know. But it was like, let's do this, you know? Like, in every contraction, I would dive in instead of recoil. You know what I mean? And it was a third of the length of the other labor. I didn't push, it was intense. It wasn't a walk in the park, but compared to my first, it was easy peasy. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. And that makes all the difference. And I think so if you know that that's what you have to do, then you're more, you know, empowered. But I don't even like the word empowered. It's fine, but I guess the point is, like, these things are natural, right? Like, this is something that's naturally occurring in women's bodies, and you just have to be knowledgeable about it to be able to control the situation. So the more knowledge you have, the more control you have, the more you can run the show, right? All right, let's see. I made like a little cheat sheet of notes, but okay. So I had a midwife and a doula, right? I was like, I'm having both.
Can I ask you real quick why? Because I know why it's a good idea, but what made you, also, this is 7 years ago. This is before COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So COVID was like when this kind of wave of home birthing started rising. You were a little bit before the upswing, which I wanted to ask you about. What made you get a midwife and a doula? Because that's interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, okay, so they work as a team together, and also I see the midwife as the person who's responsible for the delivery of the birth and all the medical things. So someone who's like, you know, a nurse who's been delivering many babies and you know, who has experience with all different types of births and all of the medical aspects of birth, right? And for hundreds of years, people have been using midwives. Doulas are somebody who help with the pain and the comfort. So I wanted both. So I didn't know what was going to happen. So I was like, better be over prepared, you know? Mm-hmm. I had, we talked about this. I had a midwife, her name's Kara. She was phenomenal. She was in The Business of Being Born. So that's a movie that goes over, it basically goes over the business that hospitals make on women who are having babies for the first time and how many cesarean sections there are, and how it's like, at one point in time when I was doing it, it was at least 50% of women who are coming in for their first birth are getting cesarean sections. So that was, some of the births that she helped as a midwife were in the video. She is unreal. She was just so smart, so intuitive, but also like so positive. I mean, the only times, there were like 2 times where I saw that something might be going wrong while I'm like delivering, you know? Now, that's another difference between a home birth and a hospital birth. Like, I feel like in a hospital, there's a lot more sense of urgency because it's a medical arena, so things are going wrong, or they need to be fixed, or you know what I mean? Whereas this is more like a process, let's let it go. So one time, she's listening to the heartbeat and she's like, and I'm like, what's happening? Because I can tell just from that face, because that's how positive she was the whole time. And then another time I forget, but they were just very small things where I could tell that she was like concentrating more on what was happening, just, during whatever transition. But she was amazing. Yeah, and then I had a doula, and so Kara was the midwife, and the doula was Angelique, and she was unreal too. She was, I ended up having my baby right outside of the bathroom, in between the bedroom, in this apartment, and there were like, as I had her, there were like warm towels from the oven and candles lit, like. You get to that certain stage in birth where you feel like you're going to throw up, right? I forget what they call it. It's been years.
Transition.
There you go. So she looked at me and she just saw it in my eyes. I didn't even say anything. And she kind of smiled, came back, and she had a bucket, and I puked in the bucket. And she was like, "No, got it." Like she was on top of it. She was like, so good. They worked as a team, and they really, really helped me. They helped me so much. I think my labor was between 6 hours and 8 hours. So as a first time, that was pretty good, Yeah. And then let's see, what else did I have here? Just, and then we can just, talk about whatever. But I had how beautiful it was, for what it was, It was like every second of the way, I kind of felt like I knew what was going on. I had the baby in my arms at the end of the night, just totally calm and relaxed. And, I slept with my baby in the bed that night. I had two people helping me clean up the crime scene that had occurred in my apartment. And then those birth classes, just so I say, that was mindful birth. So for anyone who's in New York, she probably does it online too. Her name is Mary Esther Malloy. So Mary Esther Malloy, Kara from The Business of Being Born, and Angelique Clark. I don't know if she's still a doula, but they were integral and amazing.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing, like, you made a comment that, like, in a hospital, there's a sense of urgency. And I had a guest on last week, Dr. Jenny from Mama Bear Chiropractic, and she put into words something that I felt but didn't know how to communicate, which is, in a hospital, they do see the medical emergencies. Like, that is where the medical emergencies go. So, they get to see the yucky side of everything. You know what I mean? So they show up to work, these medical doctors, these labor and delivery nurses, the OBs, the everybody. They show up to work and they have to, like, protect themselves from the fear that you're going to be the next failure or loss or whatever, some negative experience, right? And so they go in and it's like you have to put in these, like, systems to sort of protect yourself from getting completely devastated by the potential loss and the loss that you really do experience, right? And so it's,
liability.
What's that?
Sorry for interrupting, but and from liability, those systems are in place as well, right?
Exactly. So they say, okay, my Tuesday at 7 o'clock, whatever, my shift ends at this time, I'll turn it over. And it becomes, not because they're bad people, but it becomes sort of a mechanical machine where now you do the next step, and are we hitting these milestones? And it becomes, like, systematized, which
Sure.
is fine for certain things. There are certain, like, in business, there are certain things that do need systems and you need checklists and whatever, Fortunately or unfortunately, birth is not like that. Birth is going to happen the way it happens. Baby's going to come the way baby's going to come. And sometimes the baby has certain plans, and sometimes your body just says, hey, I'm not ready for this, or I'm not ready for that. And so labor speeds up, or it slows down, or it pauses, or it stops completely for a while. And that's a normal part of it. Like, and if you know that, if you read these books and you go to these birth classes, like, the body is so beautifully designed that if it's too much, if the baby is distressed, or if you don't feel safe or whatever, like, labor will sometimes just stop. And your body's like, we need to chill for a second, And that's okay. But in a hospital, that doesn't go with the timeline. And so they're like, you need Pitocin. And you're like, what if my body just needs rest? And so because your body is now being told, no, you don't get to rest. We're not going to listen to what it is that you need, body. We're going to give you a drug that's going to speed things up, which is the opposite of what you need. You get this cascade of interventions, and you get all sorts of medical procedures that may or may not be necessary. Not to say that they're not always needed, because sometimes they are, but in a great vast majority, I would think, of the time, it's not necessary. And you go down this, and then you get this terrible experience and complications and whatever.
Yeah,
So
I
like
agree.
hearing the midwife, it's all warm and comforting, and you let the process happen the way that it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. And I agree with you. I think there's a misconception that you're going to be handled better in a hospital, or people know more in a hospital, when actually history has shown that midwives know more about the process of giving birth. Physicians didn't come in until physicians used to interrupt the birth when they used to show up, and then they'd stay outside and let the midwife deliver the baby. So it's actually much safer, in my opinion, all around, emotionally, physically, whatever, to have a midwife be there, than it is to be with hospital staff. But I also think that there's some misinformation too. Like, I think people think like, oh, I can't handle that pain, so I'm going to get an epidural. And it's totally fine if you can't handle that pain, you need an epidural. Like, I'm not here to judge, but I actually think that from what I've heard from people who've experienced it that way, they've experienced more pain or longer delivery or whatever it is. Something went wrong because you weren't doing what's supposed to be done. Like, you can't feel, you can't, and then getting the contractions on top of it, like enforced contractions from the Pitocin, that they ended up feeling worse than what you could feel naturally. You know? It's not the same thing as like having a headache and taking a painkiller and then it goes away, because you don't have to do anything with your headache, right? So you just need it gone. But that's not how birth works. So you can't just like take a pain reliever and then expect to be in full control of the process or have it go easier for you, you know?
Right, and it's interesting because I see a lot in like the Facebook groups and stuff that I'm in. People are like, I have a really low pain tolerance. I don't know if I'll be able to handle the pain of labor. I don't know if I'll be able to handle the pain of contractions. And it's really hard to explain it without having experienced it, but it's not the same kind of pain. Like when you have a headache, there's no product at the end of that. There's no end result that is positive at the end of a headache. The headache is an indicator that, you pinched a nerve, or you're dehydrated, or whatever, you're hungry, you're whatever, right? You didn't sleep enough, whatever the problem is. But it's not a purposeful pain,
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
contraction, it is, well, some people say it's not. Fine. I'm not, who am I to say they're lying, but it is a discomfort or a pain, but there is a goal that it is serving. Like, it is a purposeful
Totally.
sensation.
Pushing the baby down, you're getting the baby out, right? It's
Yeah.
helpful
And
to know
I
that.
don't know of anything else like that in the body. Like, I can't really compare it. Like, I'm like, pooping is the closest thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it serves a purpose for sure. And it's helpful to know that it serves a purpose, and it's helpful to understand the way it all works. There's a lot of things that you're not going to know unless you go through it. So that's why it's better to read up and study on all this stuff. Like, I remember at the end of these of the mindful birth classes, it was like the last class, and Mary was like, okay, there's like one thing that we haven't gone over. Like, after all of this, it's an egocentric process, as it should be, because you need to understand what's going on and you're going through a lot. But at the end, she's like, you're going to end up with a baby, And some people were like, ha ha ha. And I was like, it clicked for me what she was trying to say. Like, oh yeah, this whole time we're focusing on this thing that is like a blip in the fact that you are going to have a child after this. After I delivered, I get the baby. Well, first of all, Liv like, Kara asked me if I wanted to take Liv out, like Kim Kardashian. I don't remember when that happened, but like, I'm literally like took Liv out, like as she was coming out. And Liv she helped her like get the umbilical cord off of, like, there were things that were going on during that, but it was very seamless. And then and then basically I have her, and I'm like, wait, it's beautiful, blah, 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 everything's fine, it's gorgeous, it's this moment. I'm like, totally, like, this is amazing. And then I'm like, well, I gotta take a nap. That was like really hard, What am I doing with this baby now? Like, can't I just go sleep? Like, it starts now, you know what I mean? After the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, now I start becoming a mom. Like, the baby needs you, So that was definitely an important lesson to learn. I don't know how to explain it any other way, but yeah, you end up with a baby at the end of it, and then that's where the beginning actually starts. Even though it technically starts with the birth, it's a whole nother thing after that,
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I love this part of the birth story. Like I re-experience it every time I talk about giving birth to both of my babies. But I love the look on a mom's face when she talks about the moment that the baby enters the world. There's like a certain sparkly magic that enters the world whenever a mom thinks about that moment. It's like very
Yeah.
contagious happiness.
Liv came out. She didn't cry or anything, but like the time stood still. I mean, it was just me and Liv face to face. You wouldn't have known. Like, I guess people were talking to me, or I guess someone was like, "Do you want to hold her?" And because I didn't have to hold her because I was literally like this in my mind, felt this close to her, and I'm just like right there, like, "Oh my gosh, there you are! Like I've been waiting for you, like hi." And then, then the regular life kicks in and she's on your chest or on your stomach or however it goes. But yeah, there's those few moments that are just like out of this world that transcend this universe with having a baby your own.
Yeah, and it's amazing what happens in that moment. Like, call it mental or spiritual or the physical concoction of hormones that's going on in your body, or maybe a combination of all of those things. But like, with my first, I pushed him out and I tore. I mean, bad enough. It wasn't like aggressive, but it was enough to feel it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And then in that split second, so like his head was born, he opened his eyes before his body was born. I heard him cry. He made noises. He started like looking around, while he was not even fully out of me. My midwife was like, "What is this?" And then the rest of him was born. She put him on my belly, and like I look down, and there he is. And it's not that I'm not in pain and not that I'm not exhausted because I just labored for 23 hours of like, I am tired, I am bleeding. Like, there's a whole slew of not goodness happening. But like that, none of it even registered. Where I'm like, what pain? Like, what discomfort? What exhaustion? Because here he is, and you're like, you've known this kid for 9, almost 10 months, but now you have a face and you have the little tiny little impossibly perfect fingernails. Like, can we just talk about the size of those fingernails when they first came out? It's insane. It's insane. The little smooshy lips and like
No.
everything. And for me, we pushed for a while, so he had the like long alien head. If you go to my blog, my birth story, you'll see a picture of his little like cone shaped alien head, and it looks a little funky, but in that moment it was pure perfection is all I saw, and he's covered in gunk and he's all whatever, and I'm like, I have never in my life experienced such beauty and wonder and magic and like, you know.
I know. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I remember sleeping with Liv. Like I think I slept like I don't know how I slept, but she was like on my stomach. And that's one of the beautiful things too, right? Like you're like you can take a shower, your midwife, your doula is there, you can get in your pajamas and you're sleeping with your baby, like you're in your own bed or whatever. You're in your own home if you're doing it at home. So and the next morning we just like looking at her like, she just slept for like 24 hours. We're like moving her, like dressing her in all these cute things. Like the whole day she was exhausted. She just slept the whole time. She's like this big. She was born like 6 pounds. Yeah, so cute. And then I think it was the end of the day after I gave birth. We're all getting ready to go to bed again, and she's like, we hear like, and we're like, what is that? Like, oh, it's the baby. You know what I mean? Like, finally, she woke up and she's starting and she's crying for food or milk or whatever. Yeah, it's unreal. It's surreal. You can't even explain that part. It's so amazing.
Mm-mm. It's incredible. And not to take away from second time parents, but like the first is, it's shocking how magical it is. With the second, it was just as magical, and it had its own uniqueness. Like there was other, the oh my gosh, like watching my first kid, who was 2 at the time, become a big brother in that moment. Like, you want to talk about your heart exploding. That's it. That's it right there.
Reaction.
Ugh. Well, so I I had him ready, you know, like I watched a lot of birth videos with him because I planned to have him there. He was only awake for like 2 hours of the labor, which worked out just great. But he saw, like, he knew what contractions were. I said, Mama's gonna have to work really, really hard to get the baby. He knew I have the belly and there's a baby in there, and he would feel the kicks and stuff. I'm like, Mama's gonna have to work really, really hard to get the baby out. It's a lot of work and I might make weird noises, you know, and we watched some videos, and every time we'd watch a birth video and the baby would come out, there's the baby, you know, and he would get super duper excited, and I was like, this is super cute. And then I did something, this isn't my idea, I can't take credit for it, but I don't know who to thank, because it was some random mom on Facebook that I've never met. She said, tell the older sibling or siblings that baby has a present for them when they arrive. And so he was super excited to meet baby because baby had a present for him, right? Mm-hmm. Which to a 2-year-old is a really great first impression. And so he came over and I was like in the thick of it, you know, I was having contractions. He was like petting my head and rubbing my shoulders. And you want to talk about like boosting oxytocin and the happy hormone and whatever, have your little kid help you through a contraction by massaging your leg. Like, he's like giving me kisses on the forehead, and it was just so beautiful. And then the baby arrived, and I'm sitting there, and like, you know, like there's a lot of like hubbub while I'm like delivering the placenta, and they're cleaning up what they're cleaning up and whatever. And there's this baby, and he like comes over and he's like, this is the baby. I'm like, this is Oliver. And Oliver comes over and he's like, can I touch him? And he was like in awe, like it was like quiet, hushed, like, whoa, you know? And then whatever, like he was like just enamored with him immediately. And then I was like, Oliver's got a present for you. And so we like had it wrapped and whatever, and he opened him, we got this like little toy helicopter, and he was like, this is the coolest thing ever, thank you, Oliver, whatever, you know. And then I have pictures, he's like, am I allowed to hold him? And so he's sitting on the couch, he's 2 years old, you know, like there's and so we have like pillows propped up, and he's got him on his lap, and they're just looking at each other, and I'm there, I'm like, this is the, you know.
Gosh.
Oh, it was amazing.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know how Liv's gonna handle this one. She's very excited to meet whoever she's gonna meet. She's talking about it. Oh, we're planning on having another one, so we're talking to her about it. She's told everyone at school, and so everyone's been congratulating me, but I am not pregnant. So
well, congratulations. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, they're like, congratulations, we heard you're having a boy. And I'm like, it's not yet, no, but thank you. We heard Liv's having a brother. Yeah, there were a couple other parts that were interesting about the birth, that no matter what I read or something, I think that it was difficult to kind of, difficult to predict how I was going to feel. So there's this one thing, did it happen to you, like after you gave birth, did you shake a little? They called it
not as bad as some people have it, but yes, like okay. There's definitely like the come down from the hormones. It's like, I've never done drugs, but I imagine it's like coming down off of drugs.
Okay, yeah. So I read it in the book as shivering, and I had known it as shivering. So for me, it was not shivering. Like, I know what a shiver is. It's definitely not like you know what I mean. It was like a full blown like my body was kind of convulsing a little bit, and it's right after I given birth. So that was the only time I didn't know what was going on. I thought something was wrong. So I'm just saying it so that people don't think something's wrong. Like the shiver could be full on, like your body's just like kind of, I don't know, just
like
convulsing.
Spasming?
Yeah, spasming. And then my doula came over and she warmed me up, and she gave me like honey and electrolytes, and then it went away. So that was a simple fix, but had you not known, you would think like, am I dying? Like, is this like, what's happening, you know? So that was helpful to know. I think one of the things my midwife did that was also helpful, I mean, how TMI do we get on here?
Yeah, it's TMI. We talk about poop and vaginas. So like, you know, if people can't handle that, they shouldn't be listening to a podcast about birthing. Sorry.
True.
Yeah.
So each time Liv was about to come out, she put Vaseline, I think, like down there. Every single time she came out, more Vaseline, more Vaseline, more Vaseline. And I didn't tear. Now, I don't know if that's the reason why, but that's one of the preventative measures. So I think that's helpful. Of people.
Yeah, I've heard olive oil. For me, my midwife did a warm compress with like just warm salt water.
Okay.
Which for me, what that did with my second, I didn't push. She didn't have time to do anything. With my first, like the water dripping down on that area gave me like a focal point, which is weird because you would be like, where else are you going to push a baby out of? You know what I mean? Obviously, you know which way to push, but something about the like slow stream of like warm water there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, it like gave me direction. Like, okay, all of my energy is directed in this specific point, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like just straining my entire body. Another thing that's really hard to put into words. I don't know. I feel like I'm not quite explaining it right, but like it helped.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think at that stage when you're also like pushing, you don't realize like, I mean, if you have the idea that the baby's going to come straight down, you know, you don't realize how long it takes to get the baby down and how important that time frame is. You know what I mean? To like do
Yeah.
exactly what you need to do to get that baby out. I think my midwife at that point was like, okay, I'll be good cop, you be bad cop, or whatever. I'll be bad cop, you be good cop. Like, okay, let's go. Let's go. This is happening, and like kind of getting me into like prepared for like this is going to happen, and we need to like you need to listen to everything I say, but not in a militant way. Just like, okay, let's focus. You know. There was another thing that happened that I thought was interesting, just for first time moms who've like never had a baby before. Obviously, your body's not is not open to have the baby, right? The cervix and everything, like it's not prepared for that, or hasn't gone through that before. Not prepared. So when you have a birth with a midwife, a lot of it is about the woman, right? Not the child. The doula is for the woman. The midwife is for the woman. Not even like obviously they're there for the baby, but the focus is on the mother. So at one point, you know, we're birthing, we're in like a hot tub contraption, whatever, and I feel like I'm about to throw up. So I'm like, that's weird because that's this stage, but I don't even feel like I need to push. Something's wrong. So I tell them how I feel like something's going on, and Kara was so smart. So she's like, okay, if you don't mind, you know, very gently, so calm. If you don't mind, I would just like to check something out, but we don't have to, right? Like basically like go in and see what's going on. I'm like, no, please. So she goes in, she basically takes the head and pulls it through or like somehow guides it through. And that part could have been the difference between like what, I don't know, many hours or giving up or whatever it is. So she basically facilitated the process by doing that. Now that's an intervention type of thing. So if you don't know, you know, what to ask for or something like that, but she's just very experienced and very smart. But I thought that was amazing because that saved me because then it was like, okay, time to go. Like now we're delivering. So we were at that point where I was supposed to be, but because, you know, your body hasn't had a baby yet, it's very like locked up. So having her help me with that, I think saved me many hours. And I think that was really helpful too.
Yeah, that's cool. I think two things about that. One is way before that moment, you have to find yourself a midwife that's like on your wavelength, right? You have to have somebody who is right there with you, with whom you are comfortable is not the word. Like you have to be in tune with them. You know what I mean? Like, and if there's any roughness, anything, you either sort it out or you find yourself somebody else, right?
100%.
I think that's one thing. And then the second thing is the fact that you communicated is everything. You know, that is a really important part. Like, if you have a midwife and you have a doula, use them to the maximum degree possible by being open. Like, if you think something is wrong, don't like question yourself. Don't be like, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. You know, maybe that is the case, but they'll be able to guide you and tell you. Don't keep it all inside because the more you keep your considerations and your concerns and so forth to yourself, the more you're going to tense up, the less you're going to be like engaged in the actual process of labor. So you did something amazing where you're like, something's up, I think. Let's check it out. And then a midwife that you're completely on the same wavelength on was like, here's our options. Here's what we can do. They'll consult you. There's always like, you have choices. Do you want this? Do you not want that? You listen to your gut and you say, yeah, let's do this. And if in that moment you were like, nope, I want the process to play out the way it needs to, probably that's because your body would have told you that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I remember there was one thing with my second. So after you've given birth to the baby, obviously the placenta has to come out, right? So you're attached still to the umbilical cord, the placenta's inside, you're holding your baby. Most medical professionals, most midwives have like a rough idea of how long they want the placenta to be in there before they start getting concerned. Typically, it comes out pretty quickly on its own. If it goes over half an hour, there's like, no, this isn't great. Sometimes it can be longer than that. In a hospital, that's like
Yeah.
problem, right?
Yeah.
So, she had like a birth stool, which is like this like C or U-shaped stool, which apparently some people birth babies on. I'm just way too active for, I was like, I would have broken that thing if I tried to give birth, but the placenta is fine. So I'm sitting there holding my baby. Everybody's like, excited that there's a baby that just arrived and whatever. And my midwife is like, okay, it's been like 15 minutes. I'd like to give some traction. So like, I want to like pull on the umbilical cord to see if I can guide the placenta out. And I was like, nope. No. She was like, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. But the answer is no. No, you may not. She's like, okay. And like, she was like, fine. Like, she's not forcing anything. She's like, okay. Like, what do you know that I don't? I'm like, I don't know. But, no, thank you. Half an hour, still no placenta. And I'm like, I consider myself very in tune with my body. Like, I know when it's telling me something is right and when it's wrong. I don't always listen to it, but I know, I know when it's telling me things, right? Sure. And everything was great. Everything was fine. I was like, calm, baby, everything's good. She's like, it's been like half an hour. I'd really like to get some traction and get the placenta. And I was like, nope, maybe not. She's like, a little bit? I'm like, a little bit. She did. I'm like, yep, that's enough. All done. She's like, okay, what is this? And I think she was more like, what's going on more than anything. Now in a hospital at this point, they'd be like, no, we're like cutting the cord and like scooping it out of there with like a spoon or something, Joking, of course. Well, maybe not. And like 45 minutes later, it came out on its own, perfect, healthy, amazing. I'm weird and I like to look at the placenta because I think it's fascinating. Some people are super gross. My husband like can't look at it without almost barfing, so it's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine. For me, I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And it came out completely intact, like healthy. When you look at a healthy one, you know what it looks like. It's really cool. Anyway, so fast forward. Now I'm doing this whole Sensible Mama podcast thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna read more books and listen to more audiobooks. And I was listening to one book where a girl is talking about marginal cord insertion, which is when the placenta, instead of having the umbilical cord attached right in the middle, it's attached off to the side. And she's like, it's a variation of normal, it's totally fine. The only problem, the only sort of like warning about it, is if you pull on it when it's still attached, it can come off, I'm forgetting the word, but like you can kind of break it because it's not even, whatever, evenly distributed, whatever. There's like terminology that I'm forgetting. But I was like, I had that. Mm-hmm. I had a marginal cord insertion and my body was telling me, do not tug. And I was like, what? Like mind blown. Like, how did I know that? I didn't.
Amazing.
It's just totally just like be in tune with your body and listen to what it's telling you. And you feel like something is right, it's probably right. And if you feel like something is wrong, communicate it and get to the bottom of it and figure it out. Like,
yeah, nobody knows the way you feel or why you feel, like not even a midwife or a doula. You have to explain it, right? Like they can guide you through the process and they can help you, but if you're like, no, there's something up here, you're going to be the only one who's going to know that. So you have to pass on that information.
Exactly.
Good. That is awesome. That's so like crazy.
It's like magic, right? It's like it feels magical.
It is magical. Honestly, the whole thing is magical. I was thinking about another point that may be like for new moms. So I was very much like, well, I was very like proper before I had my first baby. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to be like, this is how, because they ask you like, how do you see it going? Do you see yourself like feeling more comfortable in like a sports bra? Like they ask you, my midwife and my doula asked me everything. And I was like, well, no, of course I will not be doing that. I will be like having my clothes on and, whatever we have to do, we have to do, right? Like totally, I don't know what's going to happen or how I thought. And they were like very sweet. They're like, okay, just be open to whatever you feel in the moment. And I was like, okay, I'll be open to whatever I feel in the moment. Oh my gosh. I mean, it was like, I had like my shirt off. I was like, sorry, like everything's out, right? Like I'm like walking around like totally naked. Like, and had I had a reservation before, like the fact that they were like, just be open to it, like clicked when it's about to happen. And I feel like I need everything off of me. Like nothing needs to be near me. Everything needs to be off of me so I can do this thing. Like nothing needs to be attached to my skin. So the fact that they were like be open to it was helpful, honestly, because I may have thought, I mean, I think I still would have gone with my instinct, but I may have thought like, is this going to be weird? Is this weird that I'm doing this, right? But it's totally not weird. It makes total sense, right? You have a job to do and you need to like get in and do it. Like you
Yeah.
need no distractions, right?
It's really funny. Like I had the same thing. So I had my parents there for both of my home births. They're amazing people. I have a really good relationship with them. Not the kind of relationship where I'm comfortable being naked in front of them, but a really good relationship with them. Except when I'm in labor. And all of a sudden, I didn't give a hoot. I was like I remember I for some reason I was very concerned about having like a cute bra for when I was in labor. Yeah, so it was like this cute little like lacy sports bra, blah blah blah, whatever. And I was like, don't I look beautiful? Because that's what you care about when you're giving birth. And I remember I like started hitting transition-ish area, and I was like, get it off!
Yeah.
And my midwife was like, yes, now we're getting someplace. And I was like, say what? What? She was like, this is good. This is good. This is a good indicator that we're like actually progressing forward. And I was like, really? Okay. And my dad is like over there, you know, hanging out in the kitchen. He was in charge of like taking care of the birth team and making them coffee and getting pizza and whatever. So it's not like he was like all up in my business. But like the idea of people just random strangers, I mean strangers, you know, my midwife and her birth assistant seeing me naked, I was like, my boobs need to not have anything on them right now. This is just what needs to happen. I'm not sorry even a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, no, 100%. My mom came to mind too. And my mom's on the way there. I'm like, I'm having contractions. She's like, did you put the champagne in the fridge yet? Like, she's like, how are we gonna sell? Like, if I get there, do I need to pick something up on the way there? Like, these are the concerns. I'm like literally giving birth, and my mom's on the phone with my dad, and she's like, he wants to talk to you, and I'm like, I'm pushing. What are you doing? This is like my Israeli Italian family of like we need like just too much, no boundaries type of a thing. She was there, but she was wonderful. She was also wonderful. She was wonderful during it, right? It was emotional for her. You know, it's emotional to see. It's emotional for anyone to see somebody and that they can't fully help. They can't absorb all of it, and that person has to do it, and you love them very much. So that's definitely emotional. But what was another thing post birth? My mom stayed for a week. Now, not everyone has this, you know, but if they don't have it, I would and if they're able to, I would suggest them to hire it or find some way to do this. Plan ahead, get meals in the freezer, whatever it is. She was there for a week, so I was able to kind of recover, and then we'd wake up in the morning after being up all night trying to figure out this breastfeeding thing, right? And she would have breakfast on the table, you know, it was exactly like, you know. And then there was one day where I wanted to go out. I mean, my hormones, I didn't realize you had a 200% drop, right? So my doula told my husband at the time like that's what's going to happen, and I like vaguely heard it, but then all of a sudden I wanted to walk to Starbucks. There are these avenues, right, in Manhattan, and I'm like, it's 2 avenues away. It's not a big deal, right? Like, it's very long. And this is right after I gave birth. So like by the time I get to Starbucks, I'm like done. I don't know why I thought that this was the appropriate thing to do the day after I gave birth, and I want a double shot of espresso. And my husband at the time was just like maybe you should just have a, you know, going to suggest something else. And I start hysterical crying. I mean, hysterical in Starbucks. I have this little baby, and I'm just like, all I want is a double shot of espresso, like a lunatic. And so there were like some periods where I snapped at my mom or I snapped at this person, but like everyone just gave me the space and the grace to just go through that. You know, you're not going to necessarily be perfect, especially if you're like fiery or feisty in general. Like, you're going to have to like work with what happens. And I would suggest limited amounts of times with limited exercise outside to like extrovert your attention.
2 things about that.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have a wound inside you the size of the placenta. Okay, it's this big, right? Again, the woman that I had on last week, if you had that on the outside of your leg and somebody saw you walking to Starbucks,
Yeah.
what would they say to you?
They would be like,
right?
yeah, please, like, go home. Can I help you? Can I, you
Go
know?
lie down.
Yeah.
For the love of everything, please don't walk around with that wound until it's healed, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But it's inside us, and the nerves cut off the, you know, we don't have nerves there, so we don't feel it. So we're like, I'm fine. I did the same thing. It was January, and I was like, I'm gonna go outside and get some fresh air and go for a walk. So I bundled up my baby. I put him in the baby Bjorn carrier. My road was not that long. Like, it was not 2 New York avenues. It was much shorter than that. I made it like 2 houses past my house. And I was like, this is literally the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Please make this stop. And I was like, I have to walk all the way home, literally 2 houses, like not, it was, the houses are close together in the neighborhood that I was. And I was like, this is literally the worst thing I've ever done. I'm gonna go back home because
Yeah.
the baby was like pushing on my belly and I was like, this is, nope, I can't. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. And then second, like, you're right, the hormones. So I am not a feisty, fiery person by nature. I am not. I am very like low key, chill, whatever. Um, sometimes to a fault. Even so, the hormonal come down afterwards, particularly when my milk came in, like 4 days later, I imploded into myself. My poor husband was like, "Are you broken? Like, what's happening?" I remember sitting on the couch. I like gave him the baby because I just like I don't even know what was happening. Like I just could not handle it. I don't know what it was. Nobody said anything to me. I was just sitting on the couch and I'm like, I just really need to cry and I need to cry. I don't cry a lot. Like I'm not that kind of person. I'm like, whatever. Stuff happens. It's fine. And I was like, I just sat there and cried. And Nick, like, he doesn't see me like this ever because that's just not how I am. Like if I'm crying, he could probably count on one hand the number of times that I've like actually broken down in our, whatever, 12, 13 years of marriage. And he's looking at me and he's like, "What can I do to help?" I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "What are you feeling?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like it's almost just physical, you know?
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And then my milk came in and, my boobs were very painful. And then there was like latching and whatever. And it's a whole lot, you know? But you, like, not only should you surround yourself with people that give you, like you said, the space and the grace to just go through it and get accustomed to it, you need to do that to yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I
100%.
was like, something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not good at this. And also, hormones make you wackadoodle, you know? Like you're like, am I not a good mom? Am I
Yeah.
not gonna be able to feed my baby? I don't want to hold him. Does that mean there's something wrong with me? You know, like I just want to be alone. Does that mean I don't love him? Like
Yeah. It gets weird. It gets really
it's
weird.
so weird. And you just have to like take a step back and say, there is a physical, like there is something physical. Like the hormones are not a joke.
No, they're not, and there's not enough information about them too. I was talking to my friend Morgan about this. Like women should actually be on B vitamins after they should be. There's a lot of stuff that women don't have for that like postpartum baby blues stage, which is just a crash in hormones. That if we had would be so much more helpful. Like we wouldn't have to have that whole like whatever that whole hormonal like that adjustment to that drop and that internal craziness that goes on sometimes or can feel like it's about to come or that implosion or that impending doom or whatever it is, right? Now everybody has it in different ways and some people don't have it at all, but there's not a lot out there for women on that point, and that's something that can be, you can do research ahead of time and see like what I didn't, but now after the fact I did, like, oh, why did I feel that way or whatever, and then I saw, oh, I was missing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Different people get it in different levels. There's different reasons. Like it's not a one size fits all approach. Like for me, it was very mild, and it was only little like intermittent moments of that. Like my midwife came the next day. She's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Fantastic. I'm the best I've ever been." She's like, "Okay," because in that moment I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one thing that I do think a mistake that some mamas make is they'll take their prenatal vitamins, whatever that prenatal vitamin. For me, I didn't take like a single pill, but I like did the research and I found out which vitamins my body needed and I increased whatever. And I kept doing that after I had the baby.
Hmm.
Like, and I think some people say, well, it's prenatal, therefore I should stop taking them postnatal, right? Don't do that. Don't do that because you're just gonna like your body is still needing to A, recover, and B, now produce milk and literally what it was doing on the inside, helping the baby thrive. Now it has to do that on the outside. You need muscles because you're going to be carrying this baby. You need recovery because you have a wound the size of your head inside your body. You're
Yeah.
going to be losing blood, so you need to have like a lot of really good iron rich foods, like to help your body rebuild. you need everything that the baby needs. They're going to get through your breast milk, which means that your intake has to be super high nutrition. Like, go ahead, eat that ice cream, go have the soft cheese that you've been avoiding for your pregnancy, of course, you know. um, but like, take care of yourself. Do not forget, because by taking care of yourself, you're going to take care of your baby. You can't, yeah, it's so cliche, you can't fill other people's glasses if your glass is empty, or whatever that saying is. But it's true.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then I think the fact is that we think of it as like pampering ourselves as opposed to a necessity, and it should just be considered a necessity. Like there's going to be time, like the idea that moms just don't sleep is not okay. You know what I mean? Like, no, moms need to sleep. Their bodies just went through something. If somebody went through surgery or some sort of, major thing in the hospital, they'd be in the hospital for a couple of days, resting, taking naps as often as possible. So there's some things that, again, that's like working it out before you have the baby, I think, or working it out with the people that you love, or hopefully, whoever's having a baby has some type of resource where they can work it out that way so that they're doing the things that's just a recovery period. It's not pampering. It's just like what's needed and wanted for that period of time for your body and for your mental sanity so that it goes smoothly after that point, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. Good. We need to tell more people. Well, hopefully they'll watch this and know.
Yes. Yeah, and it's so funny. Like sometimes I feel like my job is just to give moms permission to do the things they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're a mom, and you're like, we need that. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing that women have where I don't know what it is, but like I look for it too. Like I looked for permission to go pamper myself, or whatever. But like you gotta take care of yourself. It's not, like you said, it's not optional.
Yeah, it's a standard that just needs to be elevated. And I think for whatever reason, moms go into this like self-sacrifice martyr mode after they have kids or a kid or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like it's got to be on them. And, and maybe they're in relationships where there's not enough education to understand that that's not appropriate or that's not okay. But yeah, it's, it makes everybody happier when the mom's sleeping, when the vitamins are in, when there's somebody to take care of the baby while so the mom doesn't have to stress about if I go to sleep, is something going to happen, all of that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. There's just not enough. I don't know. I guess we give you permission, mama out there. You have permission from us.
And report back.
That's right. Well, we have another like 10 minutes or so. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on the subject of home birth or birth in general.
Let me see. I mean, I would advise a home birth. I think everyone needs to try it. I think for most people, even the people who think, no, I feel safer in a hospital, then maybe they may be safer in a hospital because that's how they feel. But it is important to surround yourself with the information and with the people who are going to help you through that process, and to really know, not just trust what's said about it, right? But to really do your own research before, like you would do, a good job at work, or like you would handle a client or something. Like put that much effort into the research of how exactly is this going to go down, and how many ways can we layer it so that if something goes awry, that there's a backup plan and stuff like that, So from every stage, from the beginning to deciding where you want to have it, to going through the actual birth itself and afterwards. Like knowledge is key, and that's what gives you the freedom to have the birth that you want, and to also feel good about it afterwards.
I agree completely. I'm gonna do a shameless plug here. I've started a project recently. It's a glossary of birth terms.
Ooh.
Yes, that is made for moms, not for, clinical exams or people with medical degrees. It's made for moms. So I have it accessible for free on my website. Once I have it totally complete, I'm going to publish it in like hard copy form. But if you are pregnant and you are going to, your, your ultrasound, or to go visit your OB or whatever, bookmark it on your phone. It's sensiblemama.com/glossary. And I'm trying to include every term in there because, okay, for example, you go in for an ultrasound and the doctor comes in and says, your baby has something called failure to thrive. Goodbye. Like, talk about terrifying, right? Like there's all these terms, and that's just a particularly scary one. It actually is not in and of itself a reason to panic. So I'm trying to give moms the power to take these terms. You don't need a medical degree to read these definitions. Look it up. It might point you in the direction of where to research. I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm just trying to define the words that you might run into. I would love to get feedback from any mamas out there. Go check out the glossary, sensiblemama.com/glossary. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. You know, if something is missing that should be there, send me a message on Facebook or email me on my website or whatever. Really, really excited about this project because I feel like I'm going to empower so many mamas to make decisions on their own, to be educated, and to take control of their birthing health.
That's awesome.
Super excited. All right, well, I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I like geeked out a little bit when I found out that you had the midwife from the documentary. People out there, watch the documentary, The Business of Being Born. It's what made me feel most confident about having a home birth, honestly.
Great. Yeah, it's great, and it's definitely very informative, and it's something you should know just beforehand.
Definitely. All right, well, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.